A silent tsunami of hunger. Poor nations demand decisive action. World leaders mobilize. Next on Global Pulse. A comparison of how broadcasters worldwide are covering this story. The jump in global food prices is staggering. Corn is up 31% in the last year, rice 74%, and wheat 130%. The seemingly uncontrolled spiral has created an unprecedented crisis, as China's CCTV and the BBC report.
We risk again the specter of widespread hunger, malnutrition, and social unrest on an unprecedented scale.
A routine meeting of the heads of UN agencies turned into a crisis summit as the world counts the cost of not acting on earlier warnings.
It's what I call a silent tsunami. It's not one storm hitting in one place. This is something that knows no borders.
Food shortages have spawned riots from Haiti to Egypt. Al Jazeera says the unrest threatened local elections and sparked a police backlash in Egypt.
A 15-year-old boy was killed, dozens others injured and arrested in riots sparked by rising food prices and falling wages.
There was unrest, and they took my son and beat him severely, breaking both his legs. My son can't walk or speak now. My son is dying.
Developing nations say sustained aid, not empty words, is the only answer, according to Pan-Africa.
If we provide this assistance to those who need it so they can feed themselves, so they can have access to food at reasonable prices, naturally we'll have less riots and maybe no riots.
The BBC says many nations are waking up to the looming threat and are mobilizing an emergency response to the crisis.
Countries are recognising this complex emergency, and there's some optimism that international agencies are pulling together to try and solve it. At today's meeting in Downing Street, the British Prime Minister Gordon Brown called for an urgent plan of action. Mr. Brown said rising food prices posed as great a threat to world prosperity as the global credit crisis.
The food crisis is blamed in part on the push to biodiesel. Al Jazeera spells out in stark terms its cost to the hungry.
In the last year, corn prices have risen by 31%, but increasingly corn is not being grown for food, but for fuel. The World Bank says 90 kilos of corn will produce enough ethanol to fill up the fuel tank of a car just once. But the same amount could feed a child for a year.
The crisis is even hitting home in the U.S., where shortage is suddenly an unwelcome reality for some, as ABC News and NBC News report.
Will the food crisis hit the U.S.? The CEO of Costco today said consumers are buying unusual amounts of rice and flour, but cautioned we don't want to add to the furor here.
Starting today, if you're a member of Sam's Club, the warehouse retailer, you are not allowed to buy more than 4 bags of rice.
In impoverished countries like Haiti, concern over a 4-bag limit of rice may seem frivolous. Pan-Africa reports that Haiti's poor quell their hunger with a dish that seems unthinkable in the U.S.
Many Haitians have come to rely on a traditional Haitian remedy for hunger pangs. Cookies made from the dried yellow dirt of the country's central plateau, salt and vegetable shortening have become a regular source of sustenance, as soaring prices put many food staples out of reach.
For Global Pulse, this is Erin Coker.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.